Hi guys, today I'm going to show you how to use Touchportal Pro and OBS Studio to create advanced custom counters that you can use for your streams. I'm going to assist in setting up so that your viewers can interact using chat commands, and I'm going to focus mostly on Twitch streams. With a few tweaks, you should be able to set this up to use with your YouTube streams and perhaps other platforms in the near future. Let's jump right into it. Before we can interface with OBS and with Twitch, we first need to lay down the groundwork in Touchportal Pro. So to start off, we're going to head over to our Values tab. Here, all your custom values are going to be listed. This list might be empty if it's a fresh install. So we're going to click that plus button at the top, and it's going to give us an option to either add a value or a folder. Now, it is best practice to add everything nicely in folders, neatly organized. But in this instance, because I only have a handful of values, I'll just leave it in the root folder. So I'm going to click add value, and we're going to see this page pop up that says add a value. It's going to ask you for ID, which is the ID within Touchportal, and the name, which is also the name Touchportal uses in the lists. We're going to have a value and a value type that we need to set. So I always use the same ID and name for each value I add. I use the same name for the ID. So I'm just going to use tutorial counter, copy that, and our default value is going to be 0 because we want it to start at 0. And if I select the drop-down under value types, we can see we have the option for freeform, text, number, or time. Freeform is a combination of all three at the bottom, and then text is just for text, numbers are just for numbers, and the time is just to save the time. We just want numbers, so I'm just going to select number. I'm going to save. So now we can see we have a new value called tutorial counter. It's one value, and it has 0 as a default value, or the current value. I'm going to right click it, and I'm just going to change the color to red. This is my personal preference so that we can easily spot it during this tutorial. So now we need to interact with this number. To do that, we're going to go to our pages. Now, preferably you want to use your live scene page within Touchportal. In this case, I'm just using a blank one that I created for the tutorial. We click on a blank button, and the first thing that we want to do is we want to go to the top right here and select the button image. I'm going to go to from icon packs, and I'm going to select the basic generic achievement button over here, icon. Now the first value or action that we need is under the values tab. It's going to be set value or increment value, apology. So I'm going to select that action. Now we can see there's a red exclamation here because we're not done with this action yet. We need to tell it what to do. The first thing that we want to do is we want it to click on this drop down where it's going to give us all the values as well as our local values, which we'll get into in a bit later. We're going to go to our tutorial counter and select that because we want to take this value and increase it with 1. So I'm going to put 1 in the second input page. Once you've done that, you'll see the red icon has disappeared because this is a working action. So now I can go and click save. If I go over to our values, we can see it's still at 0. But as soon as I go and click on it using alt click on a PC or clicking it on a phone, we can see that the value has now changed to 1. Now, for us to be able to use it in OBS, there's a few prep uh, work that we need to conduct. So, the first thing that we would need to do is we need to create a new text document. So I'm just going to use my desktop here, and I'm going to I'll create a txt folder or file called tutorial counter. Now, ideally, you would want to save it in a folder where all your stuff is neatly organized as seen here. So I've all my txt files in one file under my streaming stuff under my personal OneDrive. You can obviously save it where you feel it's safe. So if I open this document, you can see it's a blank document. We don't need to add anything in here. So I'm going to close that again. Open Touchportal. Now if we go to our pages and we click or open our button, we now want to say, okay, when we click this button on our phones or tablets, we want to increment this number with 1, but we also want to update that file that we just created so that we can then pull that into OBS. So to do that, we're going to use under the file input output dropdown. We're going to go to write to file. Be careful. This opens and clears the file. So just keep that in mind as well when you use this option. Then, because we've already created a file, we're going to click on the 3 dots here. It's going to open our browser. And I'm just going to browse to desktop, which it's currently at. And I'm going to select our txt folder file that we just created. Now with our Touchportal being able to open and clear this file, we need to say, okay, once you're done clearing everything out of that file, add the value of the tutorial counter. So again, we're going to click the plus button, go to values, and then we're going to select our value that we created, tutorial counter. So if I click save now and we run this by pressing Alt and clicking on it, if I go to the values, we can see the value has gone up now from 1 to 2. If I open this document, we can see the value has been saved as 2. So close that. And so we know that Touchportal now saves the value and then writes it to the file. So the next step that we need to do is set up OBS. So to do this, we're going to use, where's this now? We are going to use transition. There we go. We're going to use a new scene that we're going to set up. So you can click new and then just click a new scene. In my case, I've already added a tutorial scene at the bottom. So there's no sources in it currently. So the first thing that we want to do is we're going to click on the plus button and we're going to say the text GDI plus. It's going to ask us to put in a name for it because we're going to create a new one. I'm going to just say tutorial counter. And I'm going to leave make source visible active. And we're going to be great with the properties page now. Because we're saving it to a file through Touchportal, we're going to select the button that says read from file. And we're going to click the browse button. And we're going to select our file that we created earlier. So we can see it pulled in the number 2. Now you can go and edit the font and everything that you want. But in this tutorial, I'm going to leave it as is. Now I'm just going to move it so it's more towards the right of the screen. And the next part that we want to do is we now want to add it so that when we run the command or press a button, that this scene here that we call tutorial will overlay in our active scene. So in my instance, I use this game scene. for all my gaming and streaming. So here's my current counters that I have, and you can see I've added them and I've made them hidden. So let's add our tutorial one. So I'm going to add a new scene, and I'm going to add the actual scene that we created. I'm going to just scroll down till I find tutorial. Make source visible, okay, and I'm going to add it. So you want it as high as possible because you want it overlaid in all the games and stuff. So if I transition there, we can see it. So what we want to do now is we don't want this number to just show up around the clock. We only want it to show once we have pressed the button. To do this, I'm going to go amateur and just change the senior again back to this display. Transition. So for it to automatically hide the number, I'm going to go and I'm going to select our button, move this across. Now, before everything, I wanted to change some stuff. So I'm going to go over to OBS and I'm going to set the show scene or set source visibility. I'm going to set that to show for scene. We wanted our game scene because remember we've nested the tutorial scene in the gaming scene now. And I'm just going to select the tutorial source. So that's the tutorial source that we're going to toggle on and off. I'm going to move this all the way to the top. And now what we want to do is we want it to hide it again. So after amateur behind everything, we're going to add a new one that says hide, and we're just going to select the same values again. So we want for game 2, and I want it for tutorial. Now if I click save, and alt click it, you're going to see the number's going to go up, but nothing is going to, you're not going to see the number. So for us to be able to see the number change and everything, we can go back. And I believe it's under utility, or now I must remember actually where this is. It is under logic. We're going to wait for timer. I'm just going to move that all the way up. And I'm going to say 1. And here where it says milliseconds, I'm going to say seconds. And I'm going to leave it to the default system. So now what we're saying is once we press a button, we're going to wait for 1 second. Then we're going to show the icon and then run the rest of the script. Now, just before we hide the scene again, I'm going to add a new timer. And I'm going to say wait for 5 seconds because I know that's more or less the amount of time for my animation that I use. So you can set this for however long you want to save it as. So now I'm going to click save. And now you're going to see if I hold Alt and I click, it's going to pop up the number and we're going to see the number change. And then after 5 seconds, it's going to hide again. Okay, great. Now we have a timer or a button that will count up for us, and we have it shown on screen for the viewers, and then we hide it again. So what's the next step? Let's say you want to add an animation on top of it. To do this, we're going to use our scene here again. I'm just going to go back into studio mode so we don't lose you guys. I'm going to select our tutorial scene, and if I amateur go and I add a new file here, I'm going to say I want a new image, and I'm going to leave it as image 3 for the time being because it's only temporary. I'm going to go to browse, and I'm going to click my granny GIF that Tamagotchi made for me for my streams. I'm going to say OK. And I'm just going to rescale this so that it's more or less in line with the size of the text. Now, obviously, this is your personal preference. It can be as small or as big as you would like it to be. So I'm just going to say properties, and I'm going to say unload when not showing. And I'm going to save that, go to game 2, studio mode off. So now, if I click this button, we should see that the animation plays and the counter goes off. Now, you might have noticed that I have text in my chat in it from previous tests that I've been doing. So I'm just going to go to chat and I'm going to clear my chat quickly. Clear chat and refresh this. So if I run the button, we don't see anything happening. There's no text. So now for the next step is to interface it with Twitch. So you might need to go and install a few add-ons. I'll post links in the description on where and how to install these add-ons. But I'm just going to go over to our Touchportal Pro here. I'm going to open our Amazon button here. And what we want to add now is we want it to interface with Twitch. So to do this is we want to go to our Twitch dropdown. There's Twitch, and I want to send a chat message. And here I'm just gonna add random text quickly. Peanut died again. And if I run the script, save and run the script now, it's only gonna give us that text. Now, what I want to do is I want to click the plus button here, and I want to say values, and I want to click on our, sorry, I clicked the wrong one. And then I want to add our values of our tutorial counter. So now if I click save and I run that button, what will happen is a message will pop up in my chat to say that Peanut died again and the number of the value. So the animation plays, we have it on screen, and now we have a chat message going off. That is basically it to create a dynamic and custom pop-up amateur counter for your stream. Now you can add as many as you like to your stream, as long as you have enough buttons on your phone, I guess. Now for the next part, what we're going to do is I'm going to have it so that your users can use chat commands to interface and show how many times you have died. So to do this, we're going to use a new tab called under the events. Now, these are all ones that I've already added, and here you can see how I used folders to separate my channel point events, counters, and my mod commands in it. Under my counters, I can see Amateur I have a dev count chat, free sub death, and all of those Amateur on here. So basically what I've done is I've set it up so that if somebody uses the chat command or exclamation dev count, it will trigger this command or event. So let's go back to the root folder and create a new event. I'm going to I'll save it as tutorial counter chat. Okay. Now I'm going to on the drop down, we want to go down and select Twitch on chat message event. Okay. Now we're going to have the option to say who can who will trigger it. If it's a mod only one, you obviously just want to select your moderators and not everyone. In this instance, we want everybody to be able to trigger the event. So I'm going to select everyone, and I want it to have anything that contains. And I'm going to say exclamation or whatever trigger you want, and I'm going to say tutorial counter. I can't recall if this is case sensitive, but if it doesn't work, you can always go back and just modify it and add multiples. So what we want to do is similar to our button. We wanted to run a couple of actions. So we know we need to have a counter so that it will allow the scene to load up, to change, and then we want to close off the count of the scene again, the counter. So we once again going to go under logic, wait for timer. I'm going to add 2. I'm going to wait for 1 and 5 seconds. So just change those to seconds. So now we know that once we click or somebody posts tutorial counter into chat, it's going to wait for 1 second and then 5 seconds. Now we want to add our source visibility. So I'm going to add 2 again, and we're going to show for scene, and we're just going to use the same scenes that we set up earlier. And we're going to show and hide. I tend to show and hide because sometimes you might have somebody in chat that run it twice, and then it inverts it. So I deliberately say show and hide. So now if I save this, we can now go back and test to see if if I go and I say exclamation tutorial counter, I can see the counter pops up. It doesn't increment. So that's the important thing. It does not increment the number. So tutorial counter, again, it stays at 7. Whereas when I click the button, it also increments the number net. Now, you can go a step further. Let's say you might not be able in that instance to increment it. What you can do is, if I move this over again, this side, we can go and we can say, okay, I want my mods to be able to add one. So I'm going to duplicate this one just for ease of access. I'm going to edit it, and I'm just going to say mod at the back, sorry, so that we know it's for the mods. I'm going to say change it to moderator and to broadcaster, because sometimes, maybe you want to add it. And you can make your counter, I'm just going to change it to T counter, so that it's going to pick up tutorial counter and then it might get confused. So I always change it a bit. So I'm going to make it T counter +1. And then all that you need to do is, we now want to increment the value. I'm going to move this back up, of our tutorial counter with 1. And I want to write it to the file again. So I'm going to open and close, or open and clear the tutorial counter file, and I'm going to set it again to our tutorial counter. So now we have multiple ways of triggering this counter. We have either pressing the button, which will take it up by 1. So if I just go there and click, so this will trigger that. It will give us text, and there we go. Now we have exclamation tutorial counter. If we run that, it will only show us how many times I've died and not increment. And now we can go t counter +1, which is a mod only command. And once we run that, we can see it does exactly the same and it increments the number. So now we have multiple ways of interacting with it. Now, if you've noticed that if I click my my actual one, I play a sound and it increments, and then I have a counter that goes down as well. So let's set up that counter. To do this, all we need to do is on our button command, and this ideally you only want to do when it's on the button command or your mod command. You want it to be able to increment or decrease as well. But we can also add it so that um, we can go the chat will also be able to see how many times you will still need to die before a free sub or event kicks off. So to do that, we're going to go to our values. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a new value. And I'm going to say set value. Sorry, delete that. Calculate with value. That's the one that we want to add. So I'm going to move this all the way up to the tutorial counter one. So this is where it rotated the OBS file, but we wanted to occur before the chat message goes out, because the way Touchportal works is that it goes from top to bottom. So in this instance, I'm not going to create a new value to count, because if we're going to select tutorial counter and we set it to 50 or whatever and do the calculation, we're going to mess up the actual counter. So where we're currently on 9 or 10, we're going to set it to whatever we set it here. So a workaround is to use a local value. Local values, I don't mind if they change or not. So I'm going to set this value to 50. So as the first thing that this script is going to do is local value 1, which is a value within built into Touchportal, is going to be, regardless of what's currently set, it's going to be set to 50. Then I'm going to add, and I'm going to say how much my def counter, which is in this case values and tutorial counter. So, sorry, subtract how much the def counter. So what it's going to do now is it's going to say, okay, local value 1 is being set to 50. Now it's going to take 50 minus this counter, and it's going to allow me to input what that is. So now in the message, I can say, just add this, and then out of 50, we have, and now I'm just going to click the plus button, values, and I'm going to select the tutorial counter. Oh, sorry, values, and I'm going to select local states, local values, local value 1 to go. So now the text is going to read, Peanut died again. It's going to give the amount of times. Out of 50, we have calculated value, which is saved in value 1, to go. So if I save there and I run this command again, it's going to tell us, A, we're going to go up to 10, and it's right. Peanut died again. Then, out of 50, we have 40 to go. So there's a simple way to have it calculate a value and count down. Let's say you want to have it trigger event on every 10 times. You can make it out of 10. You can do the maths in the buttons and that. And Now, because we also wanted to work with our mods, we need to go back and we want to say under the events, the mod one, we want to also add the same one. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to calculate with value. We're going to move that up again. There. We want local value. Um, local value is 1, 50, subtract our value tutorial counter. Remember, this value we only call it when we need it. So you can reuse the same counter or local value multiple times. It won't affect it because with this calculation, we're anyway resetting it to 50 and then doing the maths. And then yeah, we can go back. I just noticed we never set up the Twitch message for our mods. So mod message 50 minus counter equals, obviously that's just a message I'm now typing, random message I'm creating, just so that we can differentiate in it. So if we go exclamation T counter plus 1, we can have the script run. Did I not save? Oh, delete. It's doing weird stuff here now. So my layout was wrong there. So it obviously waited a lot longer before it triggered the message. So mod message 50 minus counter equals 39. So in the event that you want to maybe reverse the items, let's say a mod or you accidentally press a button, you can also add it so that you can go in reverse. To do that, you'll set up everything as is. You can just change your counter to maybe, or your command to -1. So if we just take out this one, and I'm just going to say subtract, and I'm going to add 1, and then we want to, instead of increment, we are going to use, I think it's -1. Let's see. Can't recall now. T counter -1. So if we run that one, we need to go from -1. Oh, shucks, you see I broke it now. So I'm going to let's just see what I broke. If I go into my mod folder, isn't it? It counters. How did I do it? Dev counter. Oh, you can subtract it. Apology for that. So there's no increment. So we used the calculation one, and then we just subtracted 1. We used our value of dev counter, and we subtracted it with 1. Now, as you can see, you can even go a bit fancier in that. So I made it so I can actually troll my mods. So if they try and take it all the way to 0 net. So if my value is 0, then I said I said a message. I have so many devs to go before I send out a sub, and then I made it a new message. Say, chat, please help my mod that sent the message. They are really part of the peanut gallery today. How can we go into a negative dev count? So you can make logical statements within these. So it will test, okay, if this, then that. But we'll cover that in the future as well. So I'm going to where I now said, there's that button with -1 that broke it. So what we need to do here is we need to go and say calculate with value. So I'm going to use our tutorial counter equals tutorial counter subtract 1. So I'm going to override our tutorial counter with whatever is on here. So if I save that now, like so, now I'm going to, if we run this command again, I'm just going to copy that, paste it. Now it should give us the actual number. So counter is 59 because we broke it. So let's just quickly fix that. See, these are some small issues that you might pick up. Uh, there we go. And we might actually just delete that for now. And that for now. So now, just for to show how it can work in reverse as well, we can see it will or decrease the value. So there are multiple applications that you can still set up and use. For instance, I have it so that if my counter, when the values changes of my dev counter goes to 50, then I have it so that it kicks off another event. So that's how you can basically nest a bunch of events from one click of a button to increase engagement with your viewers and make it more challenging for you when you play a tough game. But that's all for today. I will be posting a bit more updates and tutorials in the future. And please, if you do find that this is helpful or have any suggestions, please do let me know in the comments below and do share with somebody that might benefit from this tutorial. This is the first tutorial that I've done ever, so hopefully it will be better going forward. And until next time, goodbye.